Welcome to our weekly ecosystem office hours call. I am your host, Jinx, and we are joined, as always, by the best and brightest in the Pocket ecosystem. We will kick things off today with our protocol updates from Fred.
Thank you, Jinx. All right, kicking it off, I'll work my way down the list as usual. On Shannon, we successfully completed an upgrade on Alpha Testnet to 0012. That went off flawlessly. Part of the testing in Alpha Testnet is still very critical to Beta Testnet and future upgrades of the protocol. This is kind of our test bed for upgrades and changes, and that's still very important because this is an indicator of how upgrades and changes will look when we hit mainnet. So very good. Next, we will do a similar upgrade on Beta Testnet, and we're continuing to load test DevNet, and we've also continued to make various proof scalability implementations and optimizations. I'm just moving down my list here. We've continued discussing the migration for Morse to Shannon. That's been a big topic. So from a technical standpoint, we have completed the migration scaffolding. So we have an understanding of kind of what the features are going to be, and we're going to start working on the on-chain structures that are needed so that you can say, hey, this is my wallet on Morse. This is where I want it to be on Shannon, and make that claims process move smoothly. Finally, on Shannon's front, we are just attacking our documentation. Olshansky and is a big proponent of this, and I'm definitely a believer. We are a document-driven culture here at Grove, so we are continuing to iterate on the Shannon docs. We are trying to make them so simple, so easy, and so apparent for anyone who wants to join the ecosystem. So you can check those out at docs.POKT.network and drill through into Shannon and check that out. All right, moving on into Path. We are continuing to mirror traffic, and we're starting to flow more traffic from the portal over to Path, and this is part of kind of the load testing that we're doing and just understanding the behavior differences between Path and portal. For the big feature that we're staring down the barrel of right now is migrating from Envoy Proxy to Envoy Gateway for a better Kubernetes integration. When we first kind of started the journey on Path, we were tepid about making the opinionated decision to lean into Kubernetes fully, because obviously that is an opinionated decision. But we feel that that is the right decision for Path. And with that means that we would prefer to use Envoy Gateway, and that makes the integration, the ability to add services, subtract services, route services differently on Path much more seamless and much more easy. It's all configuration instead of code. So this will be kind of the next big feature that we're working on. In addition, we have WebSockets. The MVP is still in progress. That code is still being reviewed, but we do have working proof of concepts, as well as REST implementations and some LLM integrations that are still in proof of concept mode. But bringing those to production ready and community open source ready is a totally different game. So we'll continue to iterate on that. Lastly, we are very focused on the Path CLI. And this will allow users of Path to operate this in a CLI along with things like kubectl and Envoy, and it will also tap into our big metrics upgrade. So we continue to expose more and more metrics, including those with quality of service. So that's everything on Path. That was quite a lot, and I'm sure there will be questions, but we'll tackle those in just a bit. Lastly, I'll just round out with Portal. We have 7 of the 8 officially listed chains live. We're still waiting on Say. It is a very tricky chain. One of the largest RPC providers for blockchain RPCs contacted us because they were having such difficulty spinning it up. So I think that's a very good sign for the health of our suppliers. And our suppliers, you guys are absolute beasts when it comes to infrastructure. We love you. And also just a good vote for Pocket as a whole, that even the big guys are still coming to us when it comes to adding new chains. You may have noticed some instability kind of over the last few days. We've continued to be plagued by issues with our dispatchers internally, as well as we've been making some configuration modifications to try to identify bottlenecks in the portal and in our core infrastructure, meaning our ingress, that would allow us to handle more traffic in the future. And basically, we're doing that to make sure that we are getting ready to scale. And you know, when the traffic comes, we want to make sure that we are 10,000% ready. I'll just round out the updates. Last week, I went on XRPL Community Day. We talked about our partnership there on the XRPL EVM, and we are participating in their community and governance. And yeah, we've just been fighting with our code base, our existing code base, quite a bit lately, and making sure that all of our pieces and parts are up to date and not falling over. But that's quite a bit. And thanks, Jinx, for the time. That's everything I got.
Hell yeah, and that's a ton of awesome and exciting updates. I'm particularly pleased with the progress that I've seen and looking at the multi-directional engineering that's going on from y'all's side. So big fan from here. Art, any additional updates to add from the Grove perspective?
Sorry to bug in. I just want to make sure my mic is working.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Yeah, I'll just wait till the team give their updates because I have something to speak about.
Oh yeah, no worries. We'll get you over to you in just a sec.
And no additional thing. Fred covered it all.
Okay, perfect. Next, we're going to pivot over to Zatar, who will be talking about the oversight committee that was passed yesterday in the Dow vote.
Thanks, Jinx. Hi, everybody. So PIP-39 passed yesterday by a vote of 9-6. There were some voters in the wings who had technical issues who would have voted in favor of the proposal, but 9 votes was all it needed. So I won't go into any detail about the proposal itself. I talked at length about it last week. The long and short is that a committee needs to be created. Anyone interested in participating, serving on the Dow Oversight Committee should voice their willingness to do so. I'll set up a thread in the forum where you can do that. For those of you who voted against the proposal and maybe fear that the sky has fallen, let me reassure you that it's an oversight committee, and PNF, the foundation, will have very wide discretion on how to apportion all of the rewards set out in Mike's proposal that passed in the summer, starting with Shannon. So the committee's role is not to substitute its opinion for that of Mike or anyone else serving on PNF as a director. It's to make sure that things are on the up and up and monitor for arbitrariness and unreasonableness. So that's pretty much it. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to field them.
Excellent. Any questions on that? All right. Well, beautiful. As you
Actually,
said, sorry, go ahead.
Jinx, let me just add one thing. So you've got 2 weeks to offer your volunteer to serve on the committee. I'll do a vote on people who put their names forward, starting 2 weeks from yesterday, and it'll be a 1 week vote. It's important to get this committee up and running before Shannon is completed. And committee needs just one person to operate. Hopefully, we'll get 3 names in the hat and in the ring, and that's it. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. And you can, again, head on over to the forum. Zatar, feel free to drop the link in there if you like, if you'd like to throw your hat in the ring. Who was it? Was it Saif? Was that you that was asking a question?
Yeah. So
Perfect.
I was
Go ahead.
wondering if the team is constantly updating the tags that we have on CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, and CEX that we are listed on.
If they're constantly updating the tags, no,
Or
definitely not.
maybe let's say if they're up to date, the tags are up to date, depending on what the team offers right now. Because I
Yeah,
remember this instance with like I was with Fala Network before, and they didn't have a lot of latest tags on their platform on like Binance, CoinMarketCap, etc. But they weren't putting a lot of effort into updating those tags. So like the community had to push like put request to the support channels of these respective platforms, and then
Mhm.
the tags were updated. So I think it did manage to bring a lot of volume later on, but I'm just wondering if we are doing something similarly.
Yeah, there is an operational task for our exchange conversations and making sure that all of the information on all of our listings is up to date as part of that. So yes, in progress is what I would answer to that right now. I will hopefully have a better answer for you that reports where we are and maybe hopefully actual completed updates on the backside of that. I did help with updating some of the information in the past, like getting our contracts updated to include the Solana and base implementations. So I am familiar with the difficulty and complexity of those requests and at the different exchanges. Some of them are more difficult to deal with than others, but yes, that is an operational task that hopefully will be completed in short order.
If you want, I can also go through the existing categories we are listed in, just to make sure we are not missing anything that's relatively hot or might go hot in the future. And because I cannot contribute to the tech part right now because I'm pretty occupied with other things. I would love to contribute, test it out myself, but I just don't have the time right now. So I was thinking maybe I could just try to contribute on the platform side to make sure we are running steady with the trend, or at least we are ready for the next trend.
I am absolutely happy to have your contribution. If you want to DM me directly, I would be happy to coordinate that.
Sure, yeah, I'll do that. If that's all right, I'll ping you on Telegram or whatever works.
Yeah, that's fine. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Believe
Right.
me, it's in this ecosystem, a lot of it relies on actual ecosystem participants as contributors. So anytime someone has some particular skill that they can contribute to helping make sure that we are executing as well as possible, is happily welcomed here. No question about that. All right. So speaking of which, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to Mike's update in the sidebar chat there. For anyone who hasn't seen it, the February update covers a number of things, but I think one of the most important things from the perspective of a lot of the ecosystem participants is that I have personally agreed to come on as the head of operations for the foundation. There is a significant need for strong day-to-day management of the internal processes, project management, all of the individual bits and pieces of actually running the foundation like a business to make sure that it's effective and efficient and it's getting its job done as the coordinator and custodian of the protocol. Along with that, there are a couple of changes that we've made pretty quickly. One of which is Kansu, who many of y'all know, has previously served in a role as, sort of chief of staff and coordinator. We are effectively naming her the comptroller for the organization. She is an absolute beast from a bookkeeping, accounting, and financial accountability perspective. And she's the one who's compiling the reports that are going to be published monthly from here on out in the forum. I have the utmost of faith in her from a reconciliation perspective. She is an extraordinary eye for details, especially on financials. So I am super pleased at that. The second is the foundation of our migration working group. We have, you see that the channel working group has been created under the Shannon category in the Discord. That is going to be a read-only channel for most newbie type participants. But it is a group that is specifically made up of expertise from within the ecosystem who are contributing to the process of overseeing the migration. There are a ton of moving parts in an update of this size and scope, including, the migration of the actual supply of token, the state of staked nodes and validators and exchanges and gateways, all of those pieces on there. And then there are some peripherals that have to be upgraded with some additional engineering along the way, including the WPocket bridge, the multi-chain bridge, etc. So we have assembled the beginnings of the engineering aspect of that. I'm super happy to have some strong core dev contributors with a high level of expertise, including Lowell and some of the team from Node Fleet, getting Ramiro and Jorge's eyeballs from the Pocket Scan crew, and Raid Guild there as our development partner on some of these external projects. And one of my favorite OGs, Ben Van, who's been with the protocol since the very beginning, who's providing some high-level oversight and thinking around that. So that's a lot. There are a whole lot of things at play with that. I expect there will be any number of questions, and I am happy to answer them. So bring it on. Where does this leave Mike? That's an absolutely great question. Mike has always been someone whose greatest skills, I think, are seeing big picture and bringing vision to the landscape at large. The concept of a decentralized RBC network is something that he birthed and helped bring to life. But I mean, I think that we are all well aware, and Mike will be the first person to tell you that he's not a day-to-day operator on this particular level. That's not something that he has a lot of experience in or any particular associated skill set. That's very much a me kind of thing. So Mike is going to be doing one of, I think, the most important tasks that are suited to him right now, which is leading the accelerator program. He is going to be directly interfacing with the teams that we've selected for PGAT and providing some, founder vision and guidance along the way. Given that these are all startup teams, and he's been through that process before, he is, I think, well suited for that, and also can answer some of those long-term vision questions that are necessary for startups that are building in this space. How does your fiduciary responsibility to the Druid VC fund who owns equity in Grove and your responsibility to PNF intertwine to not have any conflicting interest? Also a great question. I think that it would be fair to say that when looking around this ecosystem, it is extraordinarily difficult to find someone who is an active stakeholder who doesn't have some level of conflict of interest. In most cases, or in the past with the foundation, there's been a strong desire by the previous directors to avoid any kind of conflict of interest at all. And I don't really think that that's realistic, given that stakeholders are some of the ones who are most married to the success of the ecosystem at large. And the way that we normally handle conflict of interest in any other organization or structure is through disclosure. Anyone who has a conflict of interest should be disclosing it, not just at a greater perspective, but also at a specific action level perspective. So disclosing any conflict of interest that I have that could affect my opinion, or especially in regards to an action like me participating in a vote or something like that, it's simply just going to be put out there. In some cases, I'll abstain from votes or recuse myself from decision making if that's the legally correct thing to do. But primarily, it will be from a disclosure base. I am part of Druid Ventures. I've been part of Druid Ventures for I think coming up on 3 years now. And we do have Grove as one of our portfolio companies. We are absolutely hoping to see Grove be a significantly successful organization. We also hold a sizable interest in Pocket itself from a treasury perspective. And we are deeply married to the success of the ecosystem from that perspective as well. So I think we have a fairly balanced set of interests in the ecosystem right now, and I do not in any way speak for Druid. I'm not a managing member of Druid or anything else. I provide technical oversight on deal flow there. So, from a VC participation perspective, my conflict is fairly low. But absolutely acknowledge that I certainly have a number of interests within the ecosystem. Fortunately, they're all complementary. They all mean the success of all of us. And personally, I have far greater interest in my staked farms and my participation in Pocket Network than any of those external interests. I still see typing in the sidebar. What are your 3 main goals over the next 12 months, and how do those goals align with increasing the price of the token? Also a great question. So the first main goal, I think, is the overarching guiding light for what the next 3 to 6 months need to be, and that is having Shannon be executed exceedingly well, getting the protocol from its beta stage into its actual production stage. And there are, as I mentioned before, a significant number of moving parts on that. That is likely going to take up a lot of focus from the perspective of oversight as custodian and working with Grove and other contributing ecosystem partners to make sure that all those pieces are covered and that it is a seamless and as fearless as possible process when we move from one to the next. That is that itself is probably my number one priority. Number 2 has already begun, and that's in the short term, making sure that the foundation is run as a tightly organized and well-managed operation as possible. In the history of the foundation, there has never been the kind of PMO that you might expect to see from a technical organization. And the impact of that is that you don't really have enough active reporting and visibility into what's being accomplished. I think that a lot of people looking back over the years of the foundation would say that you didn't always have any good sense of what was going on from a day-to-day perspective. There would be big initiatives and some communications around that. But having a real sense of what the month-to-month looked like in the foundation, it was just something that didn't exist. So in incorporating some of these changes, we're going to have that public reporting that's put out every month that shows our actual P&L for that month and what the structure of that operating budget is, so that it's completely transparent to all of the DAO and checkable at any point in time. And B, we're going to be internally using well-established processes on how to do project management and task management around our workflow. So those are things that I'm also looking into, having a publicly available dashboard so that you guys can see the progress of these tasks as well. We are evaluating platforms right now. I think we've landed on ClickUp as our project management tool. I'm just really looking at what the publicly facing project management side of that is as well. 3, there's a huge question around access to tier 1 marketplaces, always has been. And some of the reasons that we have not been able to achieve that to date have been operational. We all attended the Coinbase talk, and by all, I mean all of the members of the foundation attended the Coinbase talk last week about what they are going to be looking for in elevating builder-based tokens to their listings. And a lot of the things that they were talking about are things that we just have not done well as an organization. Operations, public reporting on a regular and consistent basis, visibility into the organization, predictable levels of inflation and the movement around the network parameters, etc. So that is a mid to longer term focus that we want to get past the Shannon upgrade, and we want to fundamentally we want to target Coinbase. We think that that's the best exchange to primarily focus our efforts on in the short term. And they have made a public commitment that there will not be favoritism based on connections to the organization, and that there will be no listing fee. So the combination of those two things means that if we as an organization can operate well enough to meet their requirements, we should be able to achieve that listing. Now, the time frame, I don't know yet. I mean, just straight up. There's a lot of things that we have to get done, and we know for a fact that it can't happen before the Shannon upgrade is finished. But I am looking to try to expedite that process to as soon as is reasonably possible after the launch of the Shannon update. And I think that access to tier one capital markets is probably going to be the single biggest catalyst that we can provide in helping to support the value of the network. Got to say, it's a whole different thing to be talking up here with some ability to actually really affect the outcome of some of these questions versus just coordinating answers from others. I'm really excited and happy to be in this role. Just to be clear, from a personal level, I think I bring a lot of skills to the table. Every one of you knows me. I've been part of this ecosystem since the beginning, and I'm married to the success of the ecosystem. How my retirement is personally counting on it. So we are 100% aligned in the outcome. I see some additional typing going on here. Oh, thanks, Tracy. I'm going to step back a couple of comments there. Taraba Zatar is speaking a lot, not doing much that helps boosting price. How much is your cut from invoice to PNF for talking? Again, this is another example of you asking a deeply unserious question. The only potential compensation that Zatar has at all in working with the oversight committee is a stipend for the work performed, which is capped out at $1,000 per person, $100 per hour, 10 hours max. It's the idea that Zatar is skimming off the top is ludicrous when we look at the total volume. So for the record, none. Tim said, I think I can speak for almost everyone when I say we appreciate you stepping up. We're rooting for you and counting on you. So thank you. Yeah, it's, I was part of the everybody. I was definitely looking to see some operational expertise coming out of this foundation, and being a person who's capable of executing on some of these initiatives and helping to put together these things. I've done process engineering in multiple organizations over the last 15 years. This is just something that I'm very, very comfortable with. And looking around at the talent that we have actively working in the foundation right now, I think I've got the right team for it. So. Other questions? Hell, it's only 12:30. I figured we might go for 45 minutes on this one. Cool. Well, everyone knows my DM, and you are welcome to hit me up at any point in time. I am always available. I think everyone who's engaged with me over the last years knows that. I get up early, and I generally am available late. So if you have any personal questions that you'd like to ask one-on-one or anything along that line, I am happy to answer those questions for you. We are 100% committed to having the foundation be both a financially and operationally transparent organization with clear and easy reporting that doesn't require you asking anyone. You go to the forum, you hit the links, you go check out what we're doing. And I think that that's something that should help give the DAO itself confidence about the strategy and the direction that things are moving, and to know that the work is getting done. Kojak is typing. Oh, also, shoot, as I forgot entirely, my bad, Breezy. Breezy as well is also one of the lead oversight engineers who's been invited to participate in the migration working group. We have a deep respect for the node runners in our space who have been operators for a long time and bring a hell of a lot of talent and knowledge to the table. Oh, Zatar mentions no compensation is expected for the tens of hours developing PIP-39. Compensation for sitting on the DAO oversight committee is not tapped at 10 hours per service per reward event. Oh, that is the anticipated cost. I may or may not apply to sit on the committee. Noted. Yeah. Kojak asks, I was asked a question lately that was harder to answer than I thought. How is the success of the protocol correlated with token price increase? Like Shannon could be a blast and huge traffic, but it could work well with a low value token. Nope. Sorry if it has been answered many times already. No, you know what? I don't think it has been answered many times already. I think it's been asked a lot. Fundamentally, there has always been some level of disconnect between tokens themselves and how value accrues to that token from the marketplace at large. And it's a question, honestly, dude. 3 or 4 years ago, I thought I was confident in the answer, and then I have been brutally educated by the marketplace over the last 3 to 4 years. There are things that we know are big wins from an ecosystem perspective and from a technology and product perspective that don't always translate, or maybe even don't often translate, to actual increase of market value. Communications is 100% stronger than actual technical education when it comes to generating interest and excitement in our ecosystem. In fact, to the degree that there is a massive mismatch from that sometimes. And so part of the responsibility of the foundation is making sure that our public communications are interesting and exciting and well-tuned to reaching the broadest number of eyeballs possible. One of the initiatives that I've led internally is Pocket for Dummies. We've started looking at how can we describe the value proposition of the network and the strengths of the network in ways that are meaningful to people who are specifically non-technical. And there are some gaps that you just can't cover. If they don't understand the concept of open data, for instance, it's going to be really hard to educate them to that level. But I think a lot of our target audience does understand at least the basics. They've interacted with DeFi before or through centralized exchanges. They have probably dealt with an outage of some sort. And in some cases, they may have heard about some of these specific use cases where Pocket is the solution. For example, when Venezuela was locked out of their MetaMask wallets, they could switch to the Pocket RPC at that point in time and regain access to their assets. That is a perfect use case of what Pocket enables, but it's not the story that gets told a lot when we're talking about Pocket. Those kinds of stories are critically important, I think, to helping the market understand not just what Pocket is, but why it fucking matters, because it matters a lot. So that's going to be a big focus, as well as how do we communicate this value proposition in clear language, and hopefully in bridging that gap. Oh, Michael, once again, we are happy for volunteers around here. If you want to participate in helping build up Pocket for Dummies into a broader textbook on how we talk about the ecosystem, I am happy to have you. It's, I have heard this so many times over the last few years that nobody knows what we do. Nobody understands what we do, and yeah, that's a real issue. And so one of the reasons that we coalesced around unstoppable open data as a basic value proposition is it's one of the easiest things to understand. Open data is a fundamental requirement of every public blockchain, right? And not just every public blockchain, but also a number of other types of applications that rely on decentralized communication. Art, for instance, has been talking about and experimenting with some of the privacy stack and or what we've nicknamed the free speech stack, decentralized communications applications to that can operate in the face of government censorship or things along those lines. So like all of these things are central to the value proposition that we're putting out, and they're all essentially open data. And having unstoppable open data is an actual powering layer behind all of that. Everybody's talking about the AI agentic marketplace. You can't have autonomous bots running autonomous strategies if there is an expectation that at some point in time, your connection to data is going to drop. For autonomous agents, especially, there has to be a reliance on that data flow being there in order for them to do what they do. And if it drops for any reason, you may not actually see the outcome of what's happened for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, however long that normal process is. If you're sleeping, if you're traveling, if you're away from that, little bumps and little drops in that communication ability can radically affect the execution of autonomous agents within a network. 30 minutes to an hour of downtime is enough to wreak havoc. And we saw recently, last week, how high RPC congestion was blocking the ability to close out positions and caused a significant number of liquidations. Big numbers in liquidations. That's a real world impact of a failure in open data. And these are all the kinds of use cases that we need to be including and talking about in clear language when we tell the story of Pocket. So those are big fundamental focuses to me. I met again with True Cartel this morning. They're a great organization. They've been consistent in helping to get a good, solid Twitter strategy out. Not exciting, but this isn't exciting yet. We're sort of still developing the voice of that. But they are also, more importantly, working on getting major media placement on stories and articles about Pocket, both from the consumer perspective and also from the technical perspective. And that includes a lot of opportunities to do things like, elevate our partners as well. We can present, Grove's work in there. We can show the contribution of ecosystem participants in the migration working group. We can really get the message and the picture out there that this is a well-coordinated ecosystem working towards delivering something that no one else ever has, and something that is really fundamentally critical to the future of blockchain and open data at large. I know that was kind of a long sermon there, but those are the things I believe in. Ale says happy to collab. That's awesome. Ale has been a long time contributor on creating content around that, so that'd be great to see. Ambassador asks, following the requirements of T1 exchanges to list a project and moving in that direction boosts confidence in Pocket success. I'm sure it will become clear soon. Yeah, I mean, we were actually kind of relieved, to tell the truth, at the end of that space with Coinbase, because they really answered the biggest questions that have been obstacles in the past. And whether that's public data or not, I think we've all heard, stories about needing to stroke a big check to get listed, or needing to know, the CEO's nephew's cousin's second girlfriend, whatever the case may be. A lot of times the path to listing and how those decisions are made has been really opaque. And Coinbase, acting as the largest tier 1 exchange for US residents in particular, who have been kind of locked out of trading to some degree. Like that opens up massive sources of liquidity for us. And with a clear path to get listed, where we just have to meet the obligations that they've outlined, more or less like a checklist, and be able to answer those questions about our strategy, both for the current and for the future, it really becomes achievable within a definable set of parameters. For 3 years, we've heard maybe this and maybe that, and it's in progress. We're having conversations. None of that. We are not going to have that shit anymore. We want to be listed on Coinbase. Coinbase has published a list of requirements. We are working to make the foundation an organization that meets that list of requirements so that we can accomplish that listing. That's the plan. Typing. Thanks for your reply. I'm clearly convinced that Pocket can shine as a protocol and that use cases are endless. But as a retail investor, I was hoping that in the new tokenomics, there would be some systemic mechanisms made to increase token value along with traffic and usage, like something more than pure speculative logic. So, I mean, that kind of circles back to the question itself. When you say there's some systemic mechanism made to increase token value, that's been the big question in the disconnect that I don't think anyone really has a clear one-to-one picture of. From a tokenomics perspective, yes, we are absolutely going to move forward with tokenomics that are healthy for the network from a like a mint and burn perspective. We are going to work towards getting to deflationary at some point in time. And I have some ideas around things that we think might be possible in the future, like dynamic RTTM assignment, so that the network itself is capable of responding to, flashes in usage of a certain type. But those things are all theoretical right now. There's no, actual path towards those things. From a pure tokenomics perspective, as in the existing network parameters and such, we're just going to follow best practices and align ourselves with what has been outlined from a perspective of expected tokenomics, which means that we're not emitting our asses off, that we have an equivalent burn that helps keep supply limited, and has all of the things that these folks are looking for. And I'll circle back again to that Coinbase list of requirements. That is one of the things that they require. They require there to be a predictable tokenomics set that matches their parameters around that. So the vast majority of economic and operational decisions that we make are going to be made also through the lens of what kind of exchanges do we want listing Pocket, and what are they looking for in an organization to, or in a project to list. And tokenomics is absolutely at the center of that. Tim said, node runners being profitable, more node runners entering ecosystem, more staked Pocket, more demand for buying Pocket to stand up nodes. Yeah, that's the, what do they call that? The virtual cycle or whatever that's called. When the network's working because there's demand for the network and there's a healthy economic ecosystem sitting on top of it, yeah, all of that is where things look great. And every organization within the ecosystem should have a clear and supported path to being profitable as part of their contributions to that ecosystem. So I think that is definitely something that we have in the center of vision in that. I remember a couple of years back, one of the directors had said something to the equivalent of maybe node runners shouldn't expect to be profitable on, as a full-time job on the ecosystem. And I just could not disagree more. I want plugged in contributors. I want ecosystem participants who are happy and excited to contribute their time and labor to the ecosystem, because that's also where we get innovation from. When we look at things like Lean Pocket and the God damn it. Sorry, Ramiro, I can't remember what y'all called it, but the multi-region staking for Pocket GeoMesh. Thank you. These are innovations that were created by ecosystem participants. And I don't think that we have the ability to, sort of leapfrog forward from a functionality perspective without creating an environment where it's possible for these participants to create innovation. And to do that, they have to be profitable organizations that can cover their own bills and make their own backers and owners happy. So all of these things work together. There's no single aspect on its own. Taraba asks, will validator rewards be increased in Shannon on day one? Validator rewards are going to be set back to where they were in short order. I don't know the exact date yet, but we are very close to that 20% target, at which point they will be set back to where they were previously. And then I have excuse me, I have an architectural document connected to a proposal where I am looking to restructure the ratio of how rewards are broken out in order to heavily incentivize validators to stack up there. The cost of a validator takeover right now is way too low for it to be effective security. And so we need to incentivize a bid internally between the validation pool to make sure that the cost is essentially always going up. And as the cost of participating in validation goes up, so does the incentive to buy more Pocket to increase your participation level within the validation pool and to make sure you're within it. And as a rough concept to how that would work, I would foresee a breakdown of something along the lines of 40% validator, 40% DAO, 20% servicer, so that people are more inclined to spend the money where it matters on validators, and that servicers, which are often at this point just lean client accounts on an existing server, are rewarded appropriate to that contribution. So it's, getting the people who are actually running the heaviest infrastructure in the network paid for the level of their contribution, I think is part of that. And that might be a two-step thing. Maybe that's also a difference in rewards between full nodes and lean clients. But it really needs to be something where the rewards are based on the actual cost of your participation in the network and the level of labor and expertise required to contribute that. So not hard set on the numbers there. There's definitely some room to, work that out and revise that to make sure it works well. But that is the core vision of what we think that those reward structures should look like. Taraba says, is April official date for Shannon mainnet release? The timeline has been end of Q1, beginning of Q2 forever. Beginning of Q2 is a very fluid date. And the fact is, I don't think that we're at a place right now to get to a hard date yet because of the fact that we're still heavily in alpha or in the beta testnet. And there is a significant amount of tooling that's going to be required to accomplish the migration. So, from a foundation perspective, what I'll say is that we are comfortable that our labs partner Grove will be delivering, appropriate levels of functionality early within that time frame. But there are some moving targets around some of the migration functions, which are likely going to effectively set what that hard date is. So it's, that we simply do not have a hard date at this point yet. That being said, the part of the reason that we are creating the migration working group and operating that is because two things need to happen. The migration process needs to be supremely well documented, which Grove is already working on and making sure that a lot of that stuff is in place, but we will likely need some supporting documentation for a few more things. And shoot, what was it? And B, we are going to have to try to make sure that we are accomplishing as much of an active migration of the staked infrastructure as is possible within the primary cutover. And what that means is we have a ton of people that we have to be coordinating with to all be ready to take action within a fairly small window. So they have to do work in advance. They have to make sure that they are up to date with where the status of the testnet is, that they are themselves running testnet nodes, so they're familiar with what that's like and understand the difference in what that means from a transaction level, and also to be ready to make those moves when it occurs. When will we know PJAT teams? The official public launch of PGAT is February 10th. That's when our press releases and all that stuff will come out. I imagine that you'll see some of them already floating around in some of these conversations. We are happy to have them here. But the 10th is when the actual date occurs. And believe me when I say you will know who they are, because we will be introducing all of them to the community at large. Does the foundation have the funds available to have Grove hire additional devs or contract work? I think most people would find that to be an acceptable use of funds, considering how damaging another delay would be. I think that's a very reasonable question to ask. We have, some concerns right now with our runway, given where the price currently is. And so I would take a very conservative stance right at this particular second in regards to what funds are available for what type of additional contract work. But nice to have community support around those things. Is Shannon code security audit happening soon? I don't have the answer to that. That's probably something that we can get a Grove update on at some point. I don't know if they have an answer today or not. I would assume that it's happening soon within a relative definition of soon, but if you're asking if it's happening this week, probably not. Any other questions there?
Thank you for the call.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I do see a couple more folks typing here at the end. And we're coming up on the top of the hour, so these will likely be the last questions here. Serious question for the end as usual. Will I be a millionaire this year? I am going to hire you to be the court jester for the foundation. We're going to get you a special T-shirt made. Kojak asked, if weights of rewards change after Shannon between validators and servicers, will long-term staking incentives plan adapt to that? Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable question to ask that. I don't think that there's an answer to. I will very much follow up on that. Pascal said, if I may shamelessly plug a couple of blog posts from Grove we recently published. Olshansky's made an excellent post about the history and context around the Shannon upgrade and where beta testnet is. And I've published the first in a 3-part series of utilizing Path. This one is highlighting using Path to serve LLM requests using an open source DeepSeek model. Very, very much recommend reading these. I've gone through them. It's excellent content, especially if you're technically minded. Really big fan of this kind of communication. So check them out. I'm really trying to get in. We are at 12:59, so type fast, y'all. Also, Jinx, Mike, and Gabby are working on a meme contest winner. Gabby's on vacation. Okay. Yes, we need to get. We did talk about the meme contest internally. I think we have our favorites. Sorry that we're slow on that. There was some conversation around that. I know that I have a favorite, but I'm not going to mention it just yet. We will get the first, second, and third over to you. I will try very much today, although Wednesday is my busiest day of the week. All right, y'all. I am up against a hard stop. But thank you everyone for coming. As always, my DMs are open, and we will see you again next week. Same time, same channel.